In one of my sparring sessions in the dojo, I had this period of enlightenment. Every time I spar with someone, I often lose. And I realize it's not because the other person was stronger than I had been. It's not that. It's actually because I allowed that person to win. You see, whenever I lose sparring sessions before, I used to think that there was something wrong with my physical strength. Well, I did train hard as always, but I'm often confused. Why would I always lose despite the training that I've invested my time in? Now, until recently, I noticed the root of the problem. I was afraid of both winning and losing. That's, that sounds so rare, right? Fear of winning? Why not just fear of losing? Well, let me elaborate. I fear winning because I'm afraid of the damage that I would cause the other person. So, therefore, I tend to allow that person to hit me more in the sparring arena because I'm confident that I could take in, so many punches or kicks. Well, both. On the other hand, I also, well, it's not, I think I don't fear losing as much as winning, but if I lose, I feel unpleasant nonetheless. I feel that I'm incompetent. I feel like I'm a burden to other people. I feel like I've wasted someone's time. So two results that I don't like experiencing. I think no, I now believe that that is the root of the problem, and I've proven that to be true. While I recall the latest match I had with this fellow member in the dojo, in this fighting club, I finally faced my fears. I convinced myself that the reason why I'm sparring with that person is to help him improve in the craft that we both are engaging in. So if ever I hit that person too hard, I don't have to feel responsible because the fact that he had chosen to fight me means that he was all along willing to endure any kind of injury that he may incur. Well, so I overcame that fear. I threw my punches in more spontaneously and in a more relaxed way. And ironically, he never whined about the pain that he possibly might have felt after receiving my strikes. And lo, I won 6-0. So, recalling the tournament that I participated in a few weeks ago, I noticed that was my fear. I was afraid of both feeling accountable for someone else's disappointment or hurt, pain, whatever. And another type of fear, I didn't want to appear pitiful in front of many people. Yes, I may be fearing two different results, but that fear has one common property, and that is none other than the fear of making mistakes. It sounds cliche. I wanted to brand it with a different label, but for the sake of being relatable, I've decided to label it as such, the fear of committing mistakes. Now I realized that this is the root cause why many projects, endeavors, and plans never proceed, never push through. It's because the doers themselves are afraid of failing. And through my practice in martial arts, in writing, in playing the guitar, yeah, singing too, And yes, my main task, my main vocation, teaching, I've encountered a myriad of mistakes. And one common skill I think that any practitioner of whichever field is to practice the art of accepting unpleasant and disagreeable situations. And disagreeable situations may come in many forms. The first form is undesirable feedback. I recall while dressing up, this instructor of mine entered the comfort room that I had been in. And coincidentally, while I was changing clothes, he casually referred to one of my performances in the past. Yes, you know what he said to me while dressing up, right? It's something unexpected. I thought he was going to praise me or what, but it was the opposite of what I had hoped for. He said that one of my executions was pangit or ugly. I was surprised, especially since the situation called for, rest, for pleasant interaction. But that was what came out of his mouth. Your performance was ugly. Well, so things like that. If you if you received a feedback like that at a time that you don't expect to, how would you respond? I think successful people, when they encounter such feedback, whether they're agreeable or disagreeable, positive feedback can also be disagreeable. If someone says you're good looking, yes, I've heard of some people, they've been praised for their looks, but they denied those compliments. So, see, even positivity can be disagreeable. So, whenever we receive disagreeable feedback, I think the mark of a successful person is this: he or she will just take them in and not necessarily believe them. So, going back to my illustration, how did I respond to that kind of feedback when he said that my performance sucks? Well, pretty simple. I would take his advice, I would practice that part which I did not perform well, and then reinforce the skill until I get it right according to his standards. Anyway, I'm no longer lost. I never get caught up in anymore in what other people tell me. If they say I should improve on this, I take it as at face value. I realized one thing. When people insist on their constructive, quote unquote, feedback for you, I think they secretly try to forget their own imperfections by focusing on yours. Some people, they push their opinion so hard to the point that when they deliver their feedback, it's sometimes hard to recognize their such its validity. Now, I may still be young. I know I have lots of things to learn, but I'm old enough to know why people give feedback and how they ought to give it. You know, when I encounter these people, when I get unsolicited feedback from them, especially the areas for improvement, when it's not time, well, I believe it's not time for them to give me such, when I'm not prepared to receive them, I just tell myself that I'm being kind whenever I just listen and then acknowledge whatever they tell me, whether I agree with such evaluation or not, because I'm doing them kindness in the sense that I help them forget temporarily their own imperfections. So, going back to my instructor's case, if I had the chance to explicitly tell him my response to his feedback on my performance, I could have told him this. Okay, you may focus on my imperfections if that will help you forget your own midlife crisis. To put it bluntly, I would tell him that. But of course, I kept my mouth shut because number one, it was just my first day in his class, and it would be discourteous if I respond that way. Maybe if I get to know him more, if it would be our 100th day together, maybe I'll get the sense of entitlement to tell him such thing. But okay, I want to emphasize that this is not simply sour graping. It's true. When you listen to people and then allow them to tell you the things that they want to tell you about your imperfections, if they push such opinions too hard on you, if they impose, if they sound so insistent that what they're saying is true about you, just remember this. It's just their way of forgetting their own flaws. And us people who get criticized, if we just accept without retaliating, without taking any revenge, then we've done that person kindness. We've helped that person at least feel the temporal happiness felt from forgetting one's own flaws by focusing on the other's weakness. So that's one way, how a successful person acts. A successful person is not afraid of accepting negative feedback. If you overcome that fear, then any plan of action that you have in mind will be easier to implement. So we don't need to fear failure anymore if we're going to be receptive to such kind of treatment from others. The other causes of failure, well, I think they're self-explanatory, but mostly they have something to do with the feedback others would give us. I think anyone here has failed privately, but if it's private, if no one sees your mistakes, you would confidently carry on. But if you're, let's say, okay, imagine this scenario. You're washing your face privately in the bathroom. Now, what if you wash your face in front of other people? You would get more conscious, you self-conscious, and you would be more careful where you place the soap, how you scrub your face. But if you're alone, you don't care how the hell you do it. If you're messy at it, or if you apply too much soap, or if you scrub your face too hard, as long as no one's looking, it's okay. So I think the main fear here is the fear of negative or undesirable. I think that's the more inclusive term, undesirable feedback. And in order to be good at something, to nurture your skill, to be better, it is to acquire that ability. Now, if you have that ability, reinforce the skill. And until now, I've been receiving various forms of feedback. Number one example is from my students. I've read their feedback, and even if they're younger than I am, I apply what some have suggested that I ought to do. Like, for example, classroom management. In my first year of teaching, I never cared about making the class quiet while I'm speaking. Now, in my fifth year of teaching, I've applied that and I've seen it being effective. Most students pay attention, and those who had not been responding to class discussion questions started mending their ways. They become more active participants in the classroom. So it's also good that I receive such feedback. And anyway, the purpose of any form of practice, okay, is not really to get it right as soon as possible or in the same pace as others. It is actually to sharpen our ability to accept disagreeable situations, hardships, difficulties. Whenever someone criticizes us, that person may be doing it on purpose, to help us develop that ability to accept judgments, whether they're true or not, to accept perceptions of other people about us. So I would like to end this talk by uh, by going back to the resolution that I have for myself. In sparring, I've learned how to throw in some punches and kicks without feeling sorry anymore for the other person. If ever I misapply some of the techniques, I've learned to take accountability, and I've learned that when I do so, when I challenge the other person, I'm helping that person grow. And I think that's the act of kindness instead of avoiding responsibility by not doing my best. You know, living too carefully is, I think, the most selfish deed that any human being could do. Why? Because it's involved in self protection. If you really want to be selfless, if you really want to be generous, then let yourself fail. At least when you fail, in the eyes of many, you're not being a burden. I learned that. I'm not being a burden if I'm clumsy at times, if I make mistakes. Why? Because people can benefit from my having committed mistakes. They can learn from them, and they can, like what I said earlier, they can temporarily forget their own flaws. They will also feel, I think, more secure interacting with me if they know that I'm just like them. They also commit mistakes. I also commit mistakes. The gap between us would, get smaller and probably disappear completely if they know that both parties are flawed. So I think I don't need to commit errors in the future. Right now, my attitude towards decision making has changed. If I'm not sure what the outcome will be of a certain project, but I know that there's a chance that I will achieve the long term benefit of implementing that project, like the arts festival. Yes, definitely go for it. I'll take the risk because successful people, they really take risks. If you do not take risks, if you're afraid of taking risks, if you want to live too carefully, then life will also be careful of giving you many possibilities. So I think it's also okay, yes, it's also okay not to be ready for taking risks. You just acknowledge that. And then, until you get bored, you'll one day make that critical decision. So, this has been another segment of Nocturnal Sage Special Topics playlist. In the next upload, well, if you want to request for some topics, just comment below and then let me know which areas you want to discuss. So I'm looking forward to hearing your comments, your feedback. Yes, like what I said, I'll even accept disagreeable feedback. That's part of growth. I think every human being is not entitled to avoid disagreeable situations. So thank you for watching and see you.